Hi, Red Berets Medicare for All. This is Laura Fielding, Executive Director of Red Berets Medicare for All. How are you all doing this fine Monday morning? I'm excited. I'm ready to testify here in a couple of hours. So I have something that the whole Washington board, and I didn't sign up as whole Washington, so I should maybe not say that, but representing Pierce County and the 27th legislative district. So I'll get to that. Those are updates for today. But my most exciting news is that I've been invited to speak. I've been invited to interview with Ryan Knight on Amped Up Pod, and that's on the 18th of February. So I'm going to be working really diligently to make sure that I can answer very clearly all of the policy-related questions that he might want to ask, and so that I can just speak very clearly about the efforts that whole Washington is doing as a leading one-payer states, and also our continued everyday efforts that we synthesize towards the national movement for Medicare for All. And let me give you a really good example that just happened with that yesterday. So I signed up to be an area lead, a district leader with National Nurses United. They were asking anybody can do this. If you want to go to National Nurses United, you can sign up to be a legislative district coordinator. And that's basically your job, is to just kind of bring people in to get legislative action, to put pressure. I guess those are my words. I think heavy pressure is required at this point. But if you want to say lobby your legislators, ask them to endorse Representative Pramila Jayapal's bill when she introduces it. I don't know if she'll get the same bill number, which is HR 1384. But we're all saying Representative Pramila Jayapal's Medicare for All bill. So anyway, I received an email yesterday from one of the National Nurses United coordinators of the district leads. Basically, she was making an introduction to a new person that is, there's two of us, or maybe there's three of us right now in Washington's Congressional District 6 who signed up to do this. And it's just something that I was doing anyway. Prior to this campaign with National Nurses, it's something that, as a whole Washington volunteer, prior to me becoming a recently elected board member for the whole Washington Health Trust, it's something that all the way back since 2017, when I began organizing with whole Washington, when we launched the 2018 ballot initiative 1600. And we'll talk about this on Ryan Knight on Amped Up Pod. Basically, as far as Washington state efforts, whole Washington has a two-pronged approach. We have already introduced legislation to the Senate. We have 7 Senate co-sponsors, and I've talked at length about this on previous live streams here, as I'm just kind of getting used to doing YouTube and putting my face out there. And the other prong is ballot initiative efforts. So because we understand, and I hope that you are all following Call for Congress, because Jason Call has done an enormous amount of work. I made a donation to his campaign today, because his reelection campaign, he's running again against the most conservative Democrat in, I forget his LD, or not his LD, but his congressional district. I can't remember all of these details. I'm sorry, everyone. But he has basically done an enormous amount of work. He basically was one of the authors to make sure that universal health care was on the Washington State Democratic platform. But now what everyone is beginning to understand, that on the national platform, we can't even get Medicare for All on the platform. In Washington State, the Progressive Caucus was strong enough that we're able to write and push and get the vote for universal health care to be added to the platform. So all Washington Democrats at every level who are not supporting 5204, Senate Bill 5204, And if they're at the federal level, Representative Pramila Jayapal's Medicare for All legislation are in fact in direct defiance to their own Democratic platform. So, and it's time to start calling this out. So, what Jason Call has done is he went and did all of the research and has got all of the numbers for the Senate Healthcare Committee of Washington State. And I would have to, let's see if I can pull this up. This is really his information to reveal in depth. But hopefully you're following him on Twitter and on Facebook, because this is the kind of stuff that he's working to, he is a whole Washington board member as well. And we're getting down to the serious business of calling out the corruption on both sides of the aisle. Just want to open this. Give me a second to find the correct channel that I'm in. Okay, here he goes. So he's got 9 of the 11 members, including all the Democrats. And of course, Washington being a quote unquote blue state, most of these are in fact Democrats. He's got Senator Annette Cleveland, who is the chair of the Senate Healthcare Committee. She won't let 5204 out of committee. She will not schedule a hearing for the bill. So I'm going to get to what the testimony today is. I'm going to need to be able to streamline my thoughts much more calmly and clearly if I want to take interviews, but I'm working on it. There's just a lot of information. So anyway, we have Chair Cleveland, Annette Cleveland. She has taken a whopping $184,850 from the insurance lobby. So it's absolutely no surprise that she's blocking 5204 from even receiving a public hearing. And then he goes to give the exact numbers of all the other Democrats. And then he's got, those are the Dems, which all add up to $633,925. Here are the Republicans. And if I look at the Republicans, when we say there's no light of day between the Democrats and the Republicans, this is exactly what we mean. When I look at these numbers, Holy and Padden, their numbers are all actually relatively low. Now, I'm not making the case that they're less corrupt than Democrats, but Rivers has taken the most at $180,630. So he's right up there with Chair Cleveland in terms of how much money that he is in the tank for the insurance lobby for. And so he says, adding in the 3 Republicans, that comes to $895,000. And he says when he's done with this, he's got a couple more to go, it will be over $1 million that just the Senate Healthcare Committee at the state level, the state Senate, Washington State Senate, has taken in insurance money. So this is why today, let me open this, we will be testifying. Let's see if I can find all of my notes. So we are going to be, hopefully, there's no guarantee that all of us will be called upon, and we'll be recording some of this from external sources because it's a public hearing. So that should all be, we should be able to record and share any of this. This is my section if I am called upon to speak. So here we go. Thank you, Madam Chair. I am Laura Fielding, and I live in the 27th Legislative District. Thank you for the opportunity to discuss why I am not supporting 5399. Pause. 5399 is what they have found. Emily Randall is the person who introduced 5399, and without combing too far into the depths, which I can't do, but what I can say is essentially 5399 is a distraction and is a direct attempt to sideline 5204 to just say, we need to look at the studies. We need to have another study and look at the studies. It's a way of saying, yeah, let's look at that so that we can eventually get to universal health care. Meanwhile, we have a fully funded universal health care bill that will cover all Washingtonians in the Senate, which they are, this is for the purpose of blocking, the actual legislation. So we are all going in to testify against 5399 because we don't want, that's not what we want. We want to pass or at least receive a public hearing for 5204. First, I would like to stipulate that there is much in the outline of 5399 that is consistent with 5204, but also some fundamental disagreements beginning with Section 1 regarding legislative findings. It is our firm principle and principle of the Washington State Democratic Party that all residents, so this is taken from the Washington Democrat platform, not as whole Washington being, because we're not testifying as whole Washington, we're taking this from the state platform, that all residents are entitled to health care as a human right, not because they make better workers. It is true that healthy workers are more productive and will generate more profit for their employers. One would think that those profits would turn into higher wages for the workers, but we know that is generally not so. We take issue with Section 1(3)(a) that the existing publicly supported health insurance program in the state is a success. It is patently a market failure. It has required our elected officials to act as marketing agents for the private sector health insurance companies. Furthermore, as our elected officials serve as private sector marketing specialists, they become responsible for the profitability of these companies, prioritizing that profitability over the healthcare needs of the residents and their constituents. This is not good public policy, nor is it responsible governance. Indeed, Premera recently announced the transfer of $1 million of their surplus revenue $1 million of their surplus revenue to their office in Oregon. Think of how many of our residents could have had health insurance for $1 million. The insurance regulations do not require surplus revenue in that amount. And should the healthcare industry claim they need the reserves and surplus to plan for the pandemic, they could have kept the surplus available in this state to cover those costs. We are paying all this money for health insurance, and it is going into the private coffers in fulfillment of a legislatively crafted failed marketing strategy. We know that these existing market strategies of the private sector insurance companies do not cover everyone by design. We can do better, and SB 5204 shows us how to do just that. We are asking for a full discussion, dialogue, and hearing with this committee and the state on SB 5204. Thank you, Chair Cleveland, for allowing me to testify. Well, I think that was well over 1 minute. So what I'm going to do when I get off of here is take a timer and figure out where I'm getting on that, and if I just need to read it faster or if I need to try to cut some things out of it to make sure that I finish. Okay, so that's what's happening today here in Washington State, and that's what our local fight is. So, I think definitely one of the things that I will be emphasizing that I think is really important that we're starting to realize that we're just going to do is go full bore revealing these corporate Democrats and corporate Republicans. Writing letters to the editor with personal healthcare stories and getting them printed. Putting all of this information out on social media, there's no reason to hold back anymore. We have given these individuals more than ample opportunity to come forward and let the people be heard, and continually we're blocked. We've called, we've had to, we've had a progressive comedian write a song about calling Annette Cleveland out. Ron Placone wrote a song. And it's just absolutely ridiculous. We've tried to be really creative here in the time of COVID because we can't be going and sitting outside of offices and staging sit-ins and all of that. But we obviously have done all of that stuff throughout the ballot initiative to the people in 2018. I-1600 that we ran, where we historically gathered 105,000 signatures on volunteer efforts alone. And remember, that was when we were, in the very early founding stages. We have added to our volunteer base and have added great tools to the wholewashington.org website where people, and I think I was reading yesterday when I was doing my study guide in episode 11, here on Red Berets, I was seeing that basically people can go to the savings calculator on wholewashington.org to see how much that they will save if the Whole Washington Health Trust were to be passed. But basically, everyone, or 90 to 95% of Washingtonians are expected to save money. That's a lot of people. That's a lot of us. So I'm trying to think if that was basically all I wanted to cover today. I'm really, really excited to be on Amped Up Pod, and we'll continue to hopefully learn to speak the policy, because that's the stuff that I am not incredibly strong on, but it's very important. We all need to be, and they've purposely made the website very, very accessible so that all of us can go in. And I would say, there's so much information on wholewashington.org that is helpful for everyone. Learning how to basically push back on all of the establishment narratives, and to speak about the propaganda and the PR, the major PR campaign that the health insurance lobby has been engaged in launching and is actually ramping up. You would find on the Whole Washington website and also on Whole Washington YouTube an excellent recent interview of Wendell Potter. And that's all very important stuff. This is why I say, please become a community member of wholewashington.org, because we are getting information out there that is absolutely vital to everyone who is working towards healthcare justice, both as one-payer states and collectively building this coalition towards eventually passing national improved Medicare for all. And I wish I didn't have to say eventually, but I think those of us that are clear-eyed about it, what this does when we look at what, just the healthcare committee, and I interrupt myself in my thoughts so much. Remember the tweets that Brianna Joy Gray has put out there that she did in December when this whole push for force the vote was happening, and some people were busy smearing that as a strategy instead of looking at some of the wonderful work that she and others put forward, both in sharing their personal stories, like Scott Desnoyers and Savage Joy, and so many of us who were actually putting our voices out there in favor of force the vote. But she also, she watched and dissected hours and hours and hours of the Ways and Means Committee for the Medicare for All hearings. And what she discovered through all of that is that not a single question or challenge had been posed to the Ways and Means Committee or any of the witnesses testifying of how much money that they had taken from the insurance lobby. So let's take that macrocosm, or the larger picture of the federal legislation, and then focus in on Whole Washington. This is what's helpful about it. Well, now I've just given you the numbers that just the healthcare committee, the Senate Healthcare Committee alone in Washington State, has taken over $1 million from the industry to fund their reelections and to keep representing the big insurance companies instead of the people that they were elected to represent. And that surely, I mean, if we look at those numbers, I'm really curious, what are the numbers of our federal legislators? So the Ways and Means Committee and the Healthcare Committee and all of them, when we add those numbers up at the federal level, they have to be at least what we're looking at, if not much, much, much higher. I don't know, but this is the kind of stuff that now everyone needs to begin to share this out, that these people on both sides of the aisle are in the tank for the insurance lobby and pharma, and they are not representing us. And this whole lesser of two, when I look at $1 million from the insurance, I don't see lesser of two evils right there. I don't see one party is serving us a little bit better. I actually see in a blue state, a Democrat-controlled state, that the majority, 7 or 8, if I could count, I would know if that was 10 or 12. The overwhelming majority is made up of Democrats. So that corporate money is largely Democrats. Not because if it was Republican, they would have taken less, but because, we've elected Democrats. But still, 75% or whatever of that total $1 million that is serving the insurance lobby instead of the American people is taken by Democrats. So that corruption, the blocking of Medicare for all, single payer at the state level, is entirely on both sides of the aisle. And in a blue state, it is an irrefutable fact that it is the Democrats who are blocking healthcare justice, because there's more committee members that are Democrats. And the chair is a Democrat. And she is blocking a public hearing for Senate Bill 5204. So this is just the stuff that we need to stop being afraid that we're helping Republicans. It's the Democrats who are helping Republicans. They're not helping, they're helping the insurance lobby together as a team effort. The numbers don't lie. Those campaign contributions don't lie. I'm not helping a Republican get elected by telling everybody the truth that we can't have a public Senate hearing in Washington State for our bill that would cover dental and vision and hearing and mental health and holistic therapies. A wonderful bill can't get a Senate hearing because overwhelmingly elected Democrats are blocking it, right alongside the 3 Republicans or whatever it is there. So I need to take a breath. Yeah, it's absolutely a travesty. And I guess I would just say, here is what volunteering for Whole Washington does for me right now when we are, I say we, I really don't like the left-right narrative at all. We are people, we are a country that is completely corporately owned, and we don't have representation. We have almost zero real representation. And so it is very easy to just lose heart and think, well, we're looking for leaders. I do that myself. I go on Twitter and I look for leaders, and there are some, but we are trying to find out which is the right path and what to do. I can tell you that to stay very, very issues focused is the way to go, and to remember who it is that we need to spend the majority of our energy focusing on. Brianna Joy Gray was absolutely right to make those tweets talking about why were there no questions towards the way to put to the Ways and Means Committee and people testifying on how much money that they were in the tank for the insurance company. Those are the questions that we need to be asking. And then I see people attacking her and attacking Ryan Knight and attacking people that are doing their best to tell the truth, to pull all of the corruption into the light and say, we have to look at this. Nobody wants to look at this, but we have to look at this, and we have to be completely clear-eyed about it, because if everybody wants to end up in the same situation perpetually that we have ended up with since many of us have begun waking up, it's not that it's only happened over 2 election cycles. Remember how many elections there are that are not the presidency. And that's another thing, everybody's focusing on that. But I would say Whole Washington gives me something to productively work on and work for. Another shout out, I want to make sure to let everybody know, excuse me, Jen Perlman is interviewing on, and I never know her co-host's name, and I apologize for that. But so Georgia Davenport, field director of Whole Washington, will be on Jen Perlman's show tonight at 5:30. I think that's 5:30 Pacific. there's a lot going on right now, but I think if you just go, if you're on Twitter, she's probably got it on Facebook as well, and other platforms. But go ahead and that reminds me that I need to go do it. She's probably announcing that she'll be talking with Georgia Davenport about Whole Washington's efforts. Thank you, Georgia. Georgia informs me that she'd rather be on Action Network sending emails and sending direct action things. And she was on a phone call this morning with Emily Randall, the one who introduced this bill that we're speaking against today, and that there are a lot of working pieces behind all of this. And so we're all doing our part. Here I am, a crafter of red berets, a knitter, somebody who is kind of thinking, wow, I got involved thinking I could do my creative efforts to help with healthcare justice. I'll start knitting red berets for Medicare for all, and for everybody who is supporting it, and for nurses who support it, and for the 99%. And I've met some amazing and work with, in communication with, I'm privileged to now know so many amazing nurses and craftivists. And sometimes I wish that was the only thing that I was doing right now. But what happened was, one of those nurses felt some hope, when she saw my work, and thought, this is a wonderful idea. I've shared this over and over, and I will continue to, because Catherine Lewandowski, who is the chair of Whole Washington, she was awake, the last couple of nights, putting this testimony, helping write some of what needs to be covered. And she's tireless. She gathered so many signatures. She's just absolutely tireless, and she's a full-time nurse, and she ran for office under the Progressive Party of Washington. So, you have some very, very dedicated individuals in the Whole Washington network, and all the folks at Revolution Washington Bernie-crats. I want to give a shout out to Rhonda Walker and Courtney Love, who they are the chair and vice chair, respectively, of our Revolution Bernie-crats. And they had a meeting last night. So it was kind of like there were two places that I needed to be last night. And one was on this testimony, like planning for that. And the other was our Revolution group. But that's okay. Our Revolution met, and they're planning a big weekend of organizing and action. Obviously, I think all or most of it will be online on Zoom. And that is the final weekend of February. I don't know if it's the 26th, 27th, and 28th, but the 27th and 28th is a Saturday, Sunday. So then I have reached out to Rhonda and asked, I've said Whole Washington and Red Berets is wanting to host and do a live showing of Power to Heal. That documentary that you've all seen me tweeting about is narrated by Danny Glover, and it's on the history of the civil rights movement's role in passing Medicare. We wouldn't have passed Medicare into law if the civil rights movement wouldn't have gotten behind and gotten really active in that. So I think I actually need to hop into a Zoom meeting, and I will hopefully be able to give you some updates on how that local hearing went. And I urge you to please follow at Whole Washington on Twitter, retweet them, ask questions. I urge you to go to the website, wholewashington.org, and you can tweet out directly. You can either copy and paste if that makes you comfortable, or there's different, like as you visit the website, you can see below on all the different pages that you can share to Facebook and Twitter and other platforms. I urge you to please be a volunteer wherever you are of sharing this wonderful information direct from the website. You don't need any instruction to do that. You just go and say, what can I find on wholewashington.org? How can I help them get this out there? You can also share from one-payer states as well. onepayerstates.org. So those are some actions that everyone can do, regardless of whether you're in Washington state or not. And don't waste time arguing about what is the correct strategy. Understand that there's people that are fighting at the local level, and that those same people fight every single day. I got kind of sidetracked from that email that I was telling you about. Basically, the National Nurses Point lead brought somebody new into the conversation who has just volunteered to be an area lead, and said, Laura and such, I want to introduce such and such. And now you can all use this thread to get to know each other, or to kind of plan from here. And so I responded, with a thank you, of course. And here's how I see the situation with Representative Derek Kilmer, who is my representative. I know that he's not moving on this. Obviously, I will continue to, call his office and try, but he had a very prominent and well-endorsed and very active primary from the left, Rebecca Parson. And she attended all of the Democrat meetings. She is co-chair of Tacoma DSA at this point. She is working tirelessly on Tacoma housing, trying to get housing for people. She was an active volunteer and for a while board member of Whole Washington. So she endorsed Whole Washington and worked with Whole Washington. She couldn't push Derek Kilmer to co-sponsor Medicare for All. And so that tells me that he is absolutely immovable. Again, it's not that I won't try. I always call these people and double up the efforts, or email them and say, we need you to co-sponsor Medicare for All. And please endorse Whole Washington, because we have a bill locally that will save lives. They just ignore us. They ignore. But meanwhile, that contact where she brought another person in who is newly volunteering, I said, but here is what we are doing. Whole Washington is doubling up our efforts all of the time. So if you're not already a volunteer of Whole Washington, please go to wholewashington.org. And that's how we can stay connected. And that's how we can strategize how to do this both and strategy. And she was just, wow, this is so amazing. I'm so happy to have you as an organizing leader. And I'm just like, oh God, I am terrible with emails, pretty terrible with tech. Not the best organizer, but listen, I'm just putting everything that I have to offer out there, and other people have the strengths that they're offering. So, collectively, we make a strong coalition, and that's what we have to do. A strong coalition of people who are all working together. Some people are really awesome at number crunching and research, and that's what they're offering. And somebody like me is like, well, I knit. and now more than that. But I'm growing into it, and I'm studying the website and the policy so that I become more proficient at answering the finer details. It's not my strength right now, but I am dedicated to continuing to work on that. And so I'll start today. I not start today, but I mean, I will continue today by offering testimony if I get the opportunity to do so. And thank you all for supporting. And again, that announcement is February the 18th and I'll let you know the exact time as soon as we've firmed it up. But I'm definitely on Ryan Knight's schedule for Amped Up Pod for February the 18th, and I'm very excited about that. I'm very excited to tell him and everybody else that, literally, this is on us. This is on us. We do have some movement leaders that we can still look to, but truly we have to knuckle in and not say things like, I don't know how to do that. We have to get together, and we are not all agreeing on the party or how to move forward with all of that. The thing that we have to do is let issues-based focus be our guiding light for right now. is I am not going to spend a lot of energy, like I said on previous live streams. I have historically since the beginning, and I will continue to knit these. Now I knit them largely for wholewashington.org, but I just mailed some of these off to Dr. Victoria Dooley, and I have sent these to grassroots Medicare for All candidates. Fran, who is a nurse on Twitter, who is, sorry, not knitter, she crochets. You know, she has been sending a package of red berets to Whole Washington for almost a year now. So these are small ways that we can help wholewashington.org raise some money. And if crafters want to get together and say, how can we do this in our local community, they can take this idea and they can move it into their own community and figure out the best way that they can organize with it. I have taken these to Pierce County Democrats when I first kind of started out with them, when I went to Pierce County Reorg, so I'm not doing that anymore because, and it's not that there are some people within the body of Pierce County Democrats and the 27th LD who believe that we need Medicare for all, but by and large, it's not where I'm going to choose to put my activism. But I certainly have knit berets, and there are two women locally who crocheted a lot of berets, one who continues to crochet a lot of berets. I'm not sure that she's probably at this point quite disillusioned with the local Democratic Party. So she, again, has seen this connective idea as this is something that I can count on, and I could just continue to crochet these for Whole Washington and for anything that Laura deems, so we sent some off to the People's Party. And again, so it's not, I will support everybody that I see in as much energy and time that I have. If they're fighting for Medicare for all and organizing for Medicare for all, either at the state level or at the federal level, I'm including them in red berets, if they want to be included. So, Progressive Party of Washington, People's Party of Washington, people that continue to hold their place as PCO or state committee members within the Democratic Party until something else emerges, or even as they begin to build third-party efforts. We have people who are doing some organizing for third party, but who maintain their positions within the Democratic. I'm not here to break any of that down. I'm here to say solid fighters for healthcare justice are welcome within the Red Beret movement. I'm not knitting for people who are saying, let's protect the ACA or push for a public option. That's not what I'm doing. But I do know a lot of progressive champions who have, fought really hard to get universal health care and such on the party platform. And, I also want to create third-party options and a way for them to, and ways for us to get this information out there that we need to begin running and electing people on third-party platforms. And I think that all of the good, solid progressives that are within the local Democratic Party that I organize with and know, they agree with that 100%. They don't say, oh, I'm within the Democratic Party because I think it's great to protect the duopoly. They are all like hardcore progressive healthcare justice and other intersecting issues activists who are like just doing the best that they can with the time that they have, and they're working in coalition with, like I was saying, Washington Bernie-Kratz coalitions and the DSAs and Socialist Alternative. The thing that brings all of us together are these issues. And so the reason that I think so much has been, if we base it on success in terms of who's been elected, we're not there yet. But again, like Bernie had to run a bunch of times before he actually was successful in getting to mayor. And I mean, it wasn't a bunch of times, but what did he run? Maybe was he successful on his second or third time? So it, historically we see that people are not always successful. It's a huge establishment and all of that industry money that we're taking on. And so I just spend my time trying to build a coalition and help Whole Washington build a coalition, and with Creative Red Berets, helping to find those people that are speaking truth to power and doing daily tasks every single day at the local and federal level to try to achieve this. And I'm not going to waste my energy arguing, it should be DSA, it should be the People's Party, it should be a workers' party. I don't mean that that's not important debate, but if the debate is taking up so much time that could be spent actively working on the issues, even if I'm next to a People's Party person and a Democrat and a Democratic Socialist, we did that in a ballot initiative. So that hopefully I do remember to be able to speak to on Ryan Knight's podcast, the strength that is not being discussed by the National Medicare for All movement. The strength of the ballot initiative is it brings people together. We have a very connected and family-like, it sort of like shrinks the state and brings obviously pre-COVID, but we're still doing it to the best of our ability. And hopefully we come out the other side of this and are able to organize back in a more in-person effective way. As time goes on. But the point is that ballot initiatives don't deserve to get a bad rap, and one-payer states don't deserve to be undermined as not the thing, and to receive so little support from national movement leaders. It is, in fact, how Canada passed it. That is a fact that we can never that should never leave the narrative, that should never be forgotten, is that our neighbors to the north passed their Medicare for All system because of Saskatchewan province, and they were against incredible odds, the industry, from my understanding. And I could try to do more research on that. And I'm sure there's people that have that information. And Tommy Douglas, is that his name? Anyway, that's how Canada passed it. And so that is more than likely how it's going to happen here in the United States. As we always say, if we were able to, that's why we got so excited about Force the Vote. I'll be really honest about that. That's why that's why there was so much energy around Force the Vote. It's because people recognized, not necessarily that we were going to pass it in that go. Of course not. But it was an opportunity to do exactly what I just did a few minutes ago with you, to reveal who is in the tank for the insurance lobby. It is completely false when people were saying everybody knows whose side and who's co-sponsors of Medicare for All. No, they don't. A very, very small fraction of voters actually know that information. And that's what Force the Vote was going to do, is to shed an incredible spotlight on the corruption on both sides of the aisle and who is truly blocking healthcare justice in the United States of America. It was an enormously missed opportunity. And moving forward, I'll just be doing my best every single day with Whole Washington and hoping that everybody steps outside of this partisan box. Stop protecting the people who are not only not serving you, but it's not only serving us. They are they're blocking our healthcare hearing from even being publicly heard at the local level. And it is the same way, at the federal level. So we just need everybody to come together from whatever their platform is around revealing corruption and working daily actions towards healthcare justice, and stop, pouring water onto good efforts and people who are attempting to reveal the corruption, or slow down progress by saying now's not the time. We're in the middle of a pandemic. Now is the time. So, it's not that I don't know. I don't want to talk about those people that are not willing to step forward and you can't. That is the problem with the two-party system. People seem to lose their capacity to turn and face the opposite, the people's opposition, the opposition to healthcare justice, which is the Democrats and the Republicans. It's corporately owned politicians. Thank you. I will see you soon.